Okay, this is the Dark Valley from GMT Games. We're playing the East Front campaign, 1941 to 1945. This is the situation at the end of April 1943. Now, I'm just going to discuss the game's, one of the game's major mechanisms here. Now, I can see why purists criticise this, because it's a bit gamey. But what it does, in my opinion, is it actually simulates the situation on the Eastern Front and prevents the problem that you often get with Eastern Front games, as either the Germans get a runaway victory or the Soviets do. When I say a Soviet runaway victory, I would mean in 1944, something like that, or maybe even earlier with certain games like East Front. Now, it does this by creating situations on the reinforcement track where the Germans get these mass of reinforcements. They get some just here prior to Kursk, and they also got a massive increase here just before Falblau. Now, the problem with that is it's ahistorical. There's no way that the German industry could suddenly produce all these units at these certain times and all these replacements at these times. But what it does do is it prevents a situation where the Germans just bleed to death. Because if they hadn't got all these reinforcements prior to this point, they would have been in a pretty bad state. They're now in a situation where they can slug it out with the Soviets for a bit, but the game is running against them, the tide's going against them now. Right, for this turn, they still got the initiative, which enabled them to position all their units into such an extent as reinforce the weak areas of the front. And they also got a combat chip, which enabled them to make a lot of attacks all up and down the front, but they were all pretty risky attacks. There's 1 3-1, all the rest were 2-1s. They didn't do particularly badly considering they were attacking at those odds. They had some air attacks. They didn't roll well with their air attacks at all. Only one of them did any real damage. There was a bit of an abortive attempt to attack Sevastopol, but that was really risky considering they said they hadn't reduced the forts. The German siege artillery failed to reduce that fortification hex. Soviets were in a situation where there was very, very little they could do. They're pretty much down to a movement chit. They've got a Stavka attack shit. That's not really much use because the Stavka reserve consists of a few very weak divisions at the moment. Soviets did use a lot of their air power. Those Soviet air assets, even though they're only +1, they're such a nuisance because they're always used just to flick the odds one way or another in the Soviet favour. Now, the Germans haven't managed to move all their replacement units that came in because of that mechanism I just taught. There's a lot of replacements. They didn't have enough rail movement to move them this turn. So there's a lot of very weak units which need to get to the front. They'll get to the front next turn because I don't know there's a huge amount of reinforcements coming in that are going to need any rail movement. Other things the Soviets have been doing now, they're starting to take advantage of the fact that if they retreat a unit into a town like these, you can build it back up using replacement factors to its full strength. So starting to cycle in their battered rifle corps to make them stronger again. So all in all, it's still been fairly quiet, but I just wanted to explain that game mechanism in case anybody who's really interested in buying this game finds that mechanism to be too gamey for them.